What is happening, MJ traders and investors? It's Rod with Powell Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth for an MJ Sector review. Today is a review for Tuesday, June 15th. And in today's video, we're going to be discussing Fire&Flower's earnings that dropped today. We'll go over that in detail and then we'll look at the chart as well. But before we do, make sure to smash the like and subscribe to the channel. As always, we'll go through some news and events and then we'll look at the Fire&Flower chart and the overall Canadian and US MJ space. So, diving right into it, Fire&Flower Q1 revenue increases 91% to $44.1 million. Fourth consecutive quarter of positive adjusted EBITDA of $2.3 million. And Hi-Fire Digital Retail and Analytics Platform generated $2.8 million in revenue for the quarter, an increase of 252% year over year. Entered U.S. market through strategic licensing agreement and purchase option with American Acres Managers. And we'll just skim through this real quickly. So they did have a net loss of $61 million. Compared to May 2nd, 2020, it was $12.7 million. So that did increase. That's a little bit concerning there, but one of the only companies in Canada that are seeing positive adjusted EBITDA. And we've seen a pretty big miss on EPS as well. So EPS came, well, I guess it wasn't a miss because we didn't have any forecast, but pretty bad in terms of recent quarters, came in at negative 0.21. But again, a slight increase there in revenue, and that trend continues to be seen. We continue to see an increase quarter over quarter in terms of revenue, but EPS and the net loss were the kickers here, and the reason why the stock was down and wasn't able to, get any momentum really going to the upside. So we'll move on, but you can check out the financial highlights there for a little bit more information on that. But we'll look at the chart here in just a second. I also wanted to highlight that we did have the conference today with Fire&Flower. I did a video on that today, so you can check out HEXO, Green Organic Dutchman, Fire&Flower. They participated in the Oppenheimer Growth Conference, so you can check that out. I did a video on that. It was phenomenal, and we had the CEO of Fire&Flower on there as well. But I just wanted to point out that HEXO actually has investments in Fire&Flower through common shares. They also have some Inner Spirit common shares, so Spirit Leaf. So HEXO has said many times that they are not a retail company and they don't plan to be. And that is very evident here and smart on their part. I think that they have these common share and long-term investments in retail, as they know that, they don't really have any skin in the game. So they're able to purchase common shares, and that way they can just see their investments appreciate based on the overall growth in the sector. So I think that was extremely smart. And just in the call, on the conference call, they were basically, Sebastian would compliment Fire&Flower and Fire&Flower would compliment HEXO. So it was just really cool to see them all working together. And the interim CEO of TGOD didn't really have too much to say. But Sebastian's usually always the first one to speak at the conferences. I think they know that he's very well spoken and very highly intelligent individual. So they let him speak first, and then the rest of the panelists just kind of, I echo what Sebastian said, because he basically hits the nail right on the head. So just as a reminder, we do have another event tomorrow, Wednesday, June 16th, the Cantor Fitzgerald Virtual Canadian LP MJ Forum. So St. Louis and Sebastian, CEO of HEXO, and Trent McDonald, the CFO of HEXO, will participate in a fireside chat at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Make sure to register for that and check that out. But again, just go check out that video. It's about 33 minutes long on the Oppenheimer conference from today. Also, in other news, Cushco Holdings sees Q3 revenue at 27.5 to 28 million. So moving on to the Fire&Flower chart. So we did start daily consolidation today. Like I said, we had a pretty terrible turnout in terms of EPS. We had a $61 million loss. Yes, they did see their revenue increase from quarter over quarter, but that wasn't enough and we didn't really see a whole lot of a run up into those earnings. So I think that's why we didn't see much of a sell off today as well, similar to what happened with HEXO's earnings there from yesterday, which were less than ideal. You can check that video that I did on that as well. But essentially, we lost the daily uptrend. So we'll zoom out to the weekly time frame, and that means that weekly consolidation is underway. So we were coming off of a weekly downtrend. We technically broke the weekly downtrend, but we're back within that range now, and it's entirely possible that this is a weekly lower high. But we do have key support here at 94 cents. And I'm going to actually I don't own any position in Fire&Flower. I've been waiting and holding off since this big run up from 77 cents and just been looking for a nice entry. And I'm starting to see some signs of a potential bottom here. And I'm going to be scouting an entry here tomorrow. So holding EMA 26 here on this pullback. So a close above 106 this week would be bullish, but we're just looking for a higher low compared to 94 cents. So if we can form a higher low, let's say we held this low here at 105 and then we break resistance at 121, that would confirm a weekly uptrend. And at that point, our monthly bottom would be set. And a lot of MJ names right now are trying their best to hold monthly EMA 12s, and Fire and Flower is one of them. And at the moment, if we were able to confirm that weekly uptrend, then that would look very good in favor of the bulls. So all about resistance at 121 and key support here at 94 cents. So we'll just go over the weekly moving averages here. So we are back above the 10-week moving average at 107. So a close above 107 would be bullish this week. And we've already had a bullish stochastic cross, but the MACD still got a bit of work to do. So it'd be great to see that cross bullish as well into the end of the week. We did hold the weekly 50 and 100 moving average on this pullback. So in my opinion, that was a solid entry there at 94 cents. We even had a bull cross of those moving averages with the short-term moving average moving through the longer term and held, and we had both of those moving averages right there. So that was nice support. Had you have entered at 94 cents, you could have saw a decent run up to 121. So that was a great entry. If you haven't already entered, then like I said, now is not a bad time in my opinion, especially we'll be scouting for entries. I'm going to be scouting for entries tomorrow anyways, but not financial advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. But again, I missed this entry here at 94. I'm going to look to get it closer to $1 support. So hopefully we'll be able to see a little bit more downside tomorrow and get a position started. Personally, that's what I'm going to be looking to do. On the daily time frame, so we did lose the 100-day moving average. We lost the 50 as well, but we managed to close above it at 110 and the 50 sitting there at 108. So if we do lose 108 into tomorrow, we're likely heading down to that 200-day moving average. And we also held the 200-day moving average on that pullback. So that was a solid entry. And in retrospect, that would have been a wonderful trade, or at least a wonderful time to start scaling in. But there'll always be other opportunities. And I still think that long term, this stock could be worth, $3, $4, or $5 in the not too distant future. So I'm going to be watching the $1. I'd love to get a flush of $1 again to start building a position. But if we do start to get above 113, which is the 100-day moving average tomorrow, I may look to just purchase a little bit now and then scale in multiple orders, maybe one closer to $1, and then maybe another order, scale in at about 3 orders total if we see a flush of $1. But the whole MJ space right now is a little bit weak, so wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit more downside. And SPY, I did a broader market video, you can check that out, but essentially it's a potential rising wedge there on the daily on SPY, and we know that we're likely due for a pullback on the S&P 500 as well. So if we do see a pullback in the broader market, that could bode well for bullish entries on Fire and Flower, in my opinion. We also held the weekly VWAP here at 107. So a close above 107 this week would be bullish. We dipped below it, but again, we're back above, and a close above 107 would be extremely bullish, in my opinion. So just taking a look here one more time at the daily. So we have a lack of resistance on the daily up until 121. So from that low of the day, we didn't have any support until 94 on the daily time frame either. We'll be watching for hourly trend changes as well to indicate that our daily bottoms are set. So just ticking off extended hours, we have the low here from 105. So we were in an hourly downtrend. So now bulls got quite a bit of room here to form an hourly higher low. The low at 105, the high at 112. So if we can form a higher low, let's say we pull back to 108 and we hold 108 and then we bounce and break above 112, that would confirm an hourly uptrend, meaning that our daily bottom is in for now, and that we can likely expect a bounce on the daily. But we'll want to break the high of today, tomorrow, so 112 to confirm that the daily bounce is underway, and then, like I said, a lack of resistance up until 121. Looking at the rest of the space, we'll look at the gainers and losers. So XTRX led the decline, CanTrust, Tilray, and Sundial. On the bull list, we had XLYN and RIV. So if you've been tuning into my videos recently, I said I started a position in XLY. And the reason, why did I do that? Why did I buy XLY? Well, we had zero resistance on the daily from all the way down here. So I was entering on daily oversold. They raised some funds, and we had a huge, I think they raised at like 31 cents, and then we dropped all the way down to 24. So we got extreme. We hit daily oversold conditions, and I think I filled it around 26. So we hit a high today of 29. So just off that bottom, we saw a 20% bounce, and I know a lot of people in our group followed that trade as well. We do have a gap here as well at 34 cents, But just look at that from that low there off daily oversold. Once we broke the high of the previous daily candle, daily bounce was underway, but we had a lack of resistance on the daily time frame up to 42.5 cents. That's a 77% move. So still, I took a little bit of profit today over when it was over 13. I think it was up about 12 or 13%. It was definitely over 10% on my position. So I took a little bit out of that, a little bit of profits just to remain protective. And if we do see more downside tomorrow, I'll look to re-enter just a little cheaper. But at this point, bulls are hoping for a big of a bounce as possible. We'll likely target 31, which is EMA 12. If we get above that, we also have the 10-day moving average there at 31 cents as well. And then we could be targeting EMA 26 in that gap fill at 34 cents. So congrats to the bulls on that front. We'll take a look at the US space here. So TAUG, BEV, and FLGC led the decline. On the bull list, we had BAM, NBEV, and BioHarvest. So BAM, another name that I'm extremely bullish on. At this point, it's a daily bull flag, and bull's got a lot of room here. The low at 38 to form a higher low. So let's say we do pull back a little bit more. We pull back to even 44, 43 cents. Then we'll look to form a higher low, break above resistance at 48.5 cents. That would confirm a daily uptrend. And at that point, our weekly bottom would be set. And weekly bounce is underway. We did break the high of the previous weekly candle by half a penny, but we need to see follow through. And like I said, we know that a reversal is going to come eventually, but it can always go a lot lower than you think. But personally, I don't think that we're going to see that much more downside on BAM. We had support there at 40 cents, and from the all-time lows at 22 cents, which is in March of 2020. It's really hard to imagine with all of the political changes and landscape potentially favoring US legalization. It's really hard to imagine that we see much more downside from here. But I do want to just real quick bring up the HEXO chart. So coming off of earnings yesterday, we did break the low of yesterday at 594. We lost it by 4 pennies, but we ended up closing back within that range. Closed at 595. We're sitting at 597 here after hours. We have key support at 564, but we could see an EMA 12 and 26 bear cross, which would imply that we could likely anticipate more downside and a potential test of that 564 support. But just reminding everybody that on the weekly time frame, we're still bullish, and we even have a bit of a weekly inverse head and shoulders forming. So if we can hold 564, or wouldn't want to see us lose 550, let's put it that way. And if we do lose that support, then we're likely heading down to the recent lows at 502. But overall, fairly pleased with the way the chart held up today, and the low of the day today at 590 going to be on deck tomorrow. If we lose it, we're likely going to have that EMA 12 and 26 bear cross, and we could be heading down to that 560 area. So thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth for an MJ Sector review. Make sure to smash the like, subscribe to the channel on your way out, tick the bell, you'll be notified when I go live next, and we'll see you tomorrow after market close.